Why do we do talks on a Thursday night? Well, let me give you that reason. The reason for that is this. This is a quote by C.S. Lewis. Okay, it says, "Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, is of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important." Okay, so why do we not just do a normal youth club where we don't do anything, no one has to say anything, we just kind of hang out with each other and life is good? Well, I think the claims of Jesus Christ are really important. And everyone needs to make a decision as to whether they listen to him or not. Now, all of the leaders here, hands up if you're a leader, okay, leaders here, they are Christians. Okay, but here's things they're not going to do. They aren't going to brainwash you. They're not going to force you to believe anything. They are here because they want to give you the best opportunity you can to think the big issues through. The big issues in life. The issues about Christianity. So we're not going to force you to make a decision. Okay, that's what we're not going to do. It's your choice. Okay, and we love having you here. We want to discuss some really big things. And we want to hear what you think as well. We think that's really important. I want you to make your own mind up about Jesus, and whichever way you choose is fine. We still love you. So what I want you to do is discuss in your life groups this question. Okay, what would it take for someone to convince you that they are God? Okay, what would it take for someone to convince you that they are God? Okay, so you've got a couple of minutes, just turn to each other, see if you can discuss that one question. Okay, so we are going to be looking at the book of John. Okay, we're going to be, each Thursday, we're going to be working through just a little bit more, and we're going to be asking some questions about it, and we're going to be seeing what it says. Okay, but I want to put some context here. So this is the book of John. Is written by a guy called John, funnily enough, but it's not John the Baptist. Okay, who we're going to come across fairly soon. It's John, who was a disciple of Jesus. He was a follower of Jesus, and he lived and ate with and did stuff with Jesus himself. Okay, so he wrote this gospel. Okay, and he wrote it so that you can choose what you think of Jesus. That's the reason why he's doing it. And I figured that matches what we're doing tonight, so I thought it'd be a great thing to do to begin working through. Now, I have asked 3 people to come up here and read the first part of John for us, okay? So, round of applause for the 3 guys who are going to come up here and read through John's gospel. Well done, guys. Good work. There's going to be more opportunities to do that if you want to. Please do get involved. It's great fun. Thank you, guys. That was really well done. So we're going to see that John thinks particularly 3 things about Jesus. Okay, can you guess what those 3 things are? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Because the 3 things are that he thinks that Jesus is God. Okay, he thinks that Jesus is light, and he thinks that Jesus is true. He thinks that Jesus is God, he thinks that Jesus is light, and he thinks that Jesus is true. Now he starts off this bit by calling Jesus the Word, which is a weird way of putting it, isn't it? Jesus was the Word. But let's have a think about words. Let's have a think about our words in particular. Why should we be careful with our words? Now, our words, they have an effect on others, don't they? For any of you who have been bullied or have had people say things to you online or offline, they know full well that words have an effect on others. But words also tell other people about ourselves, don't they? They tell other people about ourselves. So if you imagine that you bought a friend on Thursday night, okay? You bought a friend on Thursday night, and when they walked in, I said, "Shut up and get out!" Okay? Okay, if I said that, what would that say to them about me? It would say to them that I'm not very welcoming. In fact, that I was actually pretty angry. It would say them something about me. Now, if they came in and I said, "Hi, how you doing? I'm Aaron, you're up in the lounge. as I kind of awkwardly do, then they know that I'm a little bit awkward, and that's okay. Okay, but they also know that they're going to be going up to the lounge with you, which is fine. So that's a relief. Okay, you're more than welcome to bring friends on Thursdays. By the way, I'm not going to be yelling at them when they come in the door. That's okay. So our words have an effect on others, but they also tell others about what we are like. So why does John talk about Jesus being the Word of God? It's because the Word of God has an effect on others, and it also reveals something about God, doesn't he? So as we read through John, we need to ask the question, who is Jesus? We need to ask that question. Does he reveal something about God? So John thinks that Jesus is God. He also thinks that Jesus is light. Now, why is light a good thing? Why is light a good thing? Well, there's obvious reasons for that. But I googled this. Why is light a good thing? Did you know that if the sun went out, okay, if it just, okay, gravity was still there, so we didn't just plummet to our death. But the sun went out, okay, there was no light, there was no heat. Do you know how long it would take humanity to die out completely? It's about a month and a half to 2 months, apparently. Okay, because the light and the heat and the cold and the animals dying and all sorts of things happening. If we didn't do something drastic, we would all die out within 1.5 to 2 months. So light is a really good thing, isn't it? We like light. Light is a good thing. But John refers to Jesus as life-giving. Okay, and we know that light is life-giving as well. So John not only thinks that Jesus is of the same kind of essence as God, but he is ultimately where life comes from too. He isn't just talking about living and breathing life, he's also talking about our experience of life as well. But before we dismiss the fact that John thinks that life comes from Jesus, we need to ask ourselves the question, where does life come from? What do people say where life comes from? Now, I had to think about this, and I think the message from the world today to you guys is either you need to be good enough to change the world. Okay, you need to be good enough to have a huge effect on people, or it's have as much of a laugh as you can. Okay, I think when it boils down to it, I think they're the two messages that we're getting fed. But is that really where real life comes from? I want to argue no, from the testimony of people who have been in those situations. Okay, and you can read about them, people who get hyper rich, but still don't feel like they have enough. People who change the world, but their glory moment dies. It brings some purpose to life, but it's not the whole thing. It doesn't satisfy. See, John here, he calls the world dark, but he calls Jesus light, which is a great thing. And he says the light shines in the darkness, which is a good thing. Now, John records Jesus later on. Spoiler alert, Jesus dies. Okay, you probably know that. Jesus eventually gets killed because of the words that he uses. Now, unfortunately, that still happens today. Maybe not so much in this country, but I know for some of you, you've witnessed this, that people do get killed because of the things they believe and the words that they use around the world. There are Christians who are being killed because they believe in Jesus and they speak about him. We live in a dark world. But John thought that Jesus was the light, and he thought that Jesus was life too. The last one, John thinks that Jesus is true. Now, Luke, where are you? Luke, can you come up here?
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. When you're doing a talk, you can literally ask people to do anything and they'll do it. Luke, could you do a handstand for me? No, it's fine. I was just testing it. It's fine. Can you hold this spoon? Just hold this spoon. Do me a favour. Can you just pop that in your mouth? Okay. Now, is it true that Luke currently has a spoon in his mouth?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, Luke, take it out. Okay, is it now true that Luke has a spoon in his mouth?
No.
No. Could it be that Luke might have a spoon in his mouth?
No.
It'd be amazing if you pulled a little spoon out now, wouldn't it? It'd be amazing. It's not, is it? Because the spoon's here, it's not there. Okay, so what is What is true? True is right or wrong. It's black or white, isn't it? Does that make sense? It can either be true or false. It's not kind of slightly true. Cheers, Lee. In fact, you can keep the spoon. Thanks, mate. That's fine. If it's really true, then something true happened in reality. Okay? Now, John thinks that Jesus is true. He thinks Jesus did something. He said something in reality. And that means he thinks that Jesus said stuff that was true. See, verse 14 says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." See, this was an eyewitness. So John ate with Jesus. He talked with Jesus. He did activities with Jesus. There was all sorts of things that he did. And he came out thinking that Jesus was God, light and true. So remember I asked you at the start, what would it take for someone to convince you that they were God? Well, we have a real eyewitness of Jesus Christ writing down some of the things that Jesus did so we can make our own minds up about him. So the question is not, did Jesus exist? We have enough evidence to say that Jesus existed. The question is, what do you think of him? That's the question. What do you think of Jesus? And that's the question that we're going to be asking all the way through John. What do you think of Jesus? What do you think of him? Now, for those of you who are Christians here, now you've already accepted Jesus as God, as light, and the fact that he's true. But think about that. If Jesus really does tell us about God, don't you want to get to know him better? If he really does tell us about who God is, then surely looking to him and understanding more about him will give us an indication about God. It will tell us something about God. So I wonder whether for you, as a Christian, maybe using a bit less of your time on stuff that isn't that, and a bit more of your time on stuff that is, looking to Jesus, thinking about him, reading about him, listening to songs about him, working that through and thinking, what does this tell me about God? So I think you'll then be able to find out that God is more awesome than you thought he was already. See, John thinks Jesus is God, he thinks he's light, and he thinks he's true. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into our discussion groups, and we are going to answer these two questions. Okay? So in your life group, see if you can discuss these two. First one, what are some of the things that people think about Jesus? Okay, and the second one, what would someone's life look like if they put Jesus first? Okay, and I've put a note on here, quiz your leaders about this. Okay, you have absolute permission to ask your leaders, how do you put Jesus first in your life? Okay,